understanding, and under understanding we have like 6 facets. So I'll start with the first one, which is on explanation. There are many pages of
6 types of understanding.
Yeah. So basically what they are trying to say in explanation is that you don't just give a fact to the kid, you have to explain why, how, what. It's like, I can't say, okay, if I throw the pencil, it's going to fall down, okay? It's like, why does it fall down? What does it happen? What happens to the pencil? So there are these curiosity questions which have to come up very naturally. Even like when you're giving formulas and stuff like that, you have to explain what that formula means. Something as simple as 2 2s are 4 needs to be explained. What is the meaning of 2 2s are 4? It's not just mucking up the tables. So yeah, that's what it means by explanation. All questions have to be covered. There's one line that I read, it's very interesting. We need to explain why our answer is correct, why the fact exists, why the formula works. We need to supply support for our opinions. That's what explanation is about. I have a video, but we are short of time, so
share it afterwards.
The second facet is interpretation. So how she said about understanding is you're given something and you understand, but then what you make out of it is another thing. So for example, they've said that there's an event reported in the newspaper that about a child abuse case. So how different people like a police officer or a mother or a child who is orphaned in another foster care home maybe would feel about that information is their own interpretation of that thing. Also, interpretation depends on different situations. For example, in history or archaeology, they find things and then they have to construct meaning out of it. They have to think, oh, why this has happened, so what must have caused all this? So they construct meaning out of it. Then, for example, in economics, they have all the data from which they determine all the trends of the market and everything. That's one part of interpretation. Also, they say that, for example, an author, if he's written a book with a certain meaning in mind, with his own thoughts in mind, it is not necessary that the reader will also interpret everything in the same manner. So the author's own thoughts are also not his, not what he intends. It's what the reader understands from them. And that is because it all depends on things like personal, social, cultural and historical context of what that person is thinking. So that's about interpretation.
Facet number 3 is about application. We've spoken a lot about that earlier. Application, what is application? Application is basically ability to use knowledge in new situations. You can the knowledge what you gain, you can use it, you can adapt it, or you can customize it to your understanding. Again, application is very context-dependent skill. Context is basically your idea, what your understanding is all about. So it's again very context-dependent skill. As our role to kind of have applications that are going on in our class. There are things like you can apply knowledge. You have to make sure that the children apply knowledge to the use of new problems. So if it's maths or science, if they can apply their understanding to new problems or situations, especially in your assessments, that's how you can assess their understanding. If they can relate the knowledge to their own personal experience or ideas, that's where you can see application happening. And also, we have to make sure that education is more performance-based rather than product-based if you want to kind of see application happening in the class. There's a very nice line that sums up understanding to application, that is, if understanding is to blossom, students need to have a clear performance goal and be required to keep that goal in constant view as they work. So that's all application.
The fourth one is perspective. I'm standing here because I use the concept to summarize my readings. It's very highly intellectual, so I have to accept information. So the first one, what is it? It is perspective is a critical, insightful points of view. As an example, most of our history books are subjective and open to different opinions. So we should encourage questions such as what of it, what is assumed, and what then after reading an article. So what is the function of perspective? It answers to a complex question. It involves making implicit explicit. It exposes questionable conclusions, assumptions, and implications. And it also involves the discipline of asking. That's why we shouldn't get irritated when the students are asking about something. And we should also teach that our students we call that HUTS question, the higher order thinking skill questions. And what is the connection of perspective to teaching? We should include explicit opportunities for students to confront alternative theories and diverse points of view regarding the big ideas. So for reflection, once the student has a matured understanding or perspective, the student can now apply the understanding to something. The student can create different stories, and then he or she can create new theories.
The fifth passive understanding is empathy. So empathy purely means getting into someone's shoes and understanding their point of view. So again, taking that, since it's the same author, I'm assuming, so it's again history and everything. So if a text is given to you, so if you find something really absurd or silly in that, so the whole idea is to try and understand it from the author's perspective. Try and understand why the author would have written that, what is the reason behind it, and then try and read the text again. So you probably make a completely different sense of what you're reading. So it's all about understanding another person, being the ability to take their background knowledge from where they come, why they are in a particular situation, why they are reacting the way they are reacting, and understanding them. Now, here it says it's very different to perspective. Empathy is very different to perspective. Perspective is something, it's detaching yourself from a situation, standing behind and critically examining something very objectively. Whereas empathy is connecting yourself to the situation, understanding why it has happened. So they're two very different things.